So Alexis Lafrenière, a player that was under a lot of scrutiny going into this season. Would he be a NHL bust? Would he turn things around? Would he keep developing? There was a lot of conversation around him and his game and whether the Rangers should continue to develop him or move on from him altogether. Well, I felt like kind of going into Alexis Lafreniere's stats this season, kind of compared to seasons prior, and even going into his draft class. So, without any further ado, let's talk about Alexis Lafreniere's stats on the season. In 46 games played, he has 11 goals, 15 assists for 26 points, and a minus 11 plus minus. So, the plus minus, not great. You want a little bit better in that regard, but playing 17 minutes, time on ice. He's been on the top line for the Rangers, up and down. Sometimes they move around a little bit, but he has been relatively a pretty productive player. He could potentially hit upper 40s, maybe low 50s in points on this current pace. How is that in comparison to the last few seasons? Let's go right into his season. His first year, 19-year-old kid, 56 games played, 12 goals, 9 assists for 21 points. Okay. I mean, that's a solid rookie season. And then the second year, 79 games played, 19 goals, 12 assists for 31 points. And while he played more games, some people want a little bit more offensive production. But considering he's only 20, I think that's respectable at the NHL level. Last year, 81 games played, 16 goals, 23 assists for 39 points. This is someone you drafted first overall. And you're like, wow, is this guy just not going to be him? And going into this season, I said, I think Alexis Lafrenière has a good chance to have a breakout year or just keep developing because he's still a young kid. He's 22 years old. And in 46 games played, 11 goals, 15 assists for 26 points, on pace to have the best point total of his career. I think Lafrenière is doing fine for such a young player. But I know he's going to get compared in that draft class. So let's go into that draft class. Lafrenière, first overall. Quentin Byfield, he was drafted second overall. And then obviously Tim Stützle, who is the best player in this draft thus far in the NHL. Lucas Raymond, who's, solid point production. You got some notable names. You got Jamie Drysdale, Rossi, Askarov. I mean, once Soros, he's going to be looked as the heir apparent. Lundell, who helped the Florida Panthers kind of go on a good run. You got some noticeable NHL players like Dawson Mercer for the Devils, Brendan Schneider for the Rangers, kind of as a rotational piece right now on defense. Like, okay, how is he doing in comparison? Let's look at total points thus far in all of their careers. So number one, not really a surprise, Stützle, 220 points, 83 goals, 137 assists, and 252 games played. In second place, Lucas Raymond, 202 games played, 53 goals, 84 assists for 137 points. So, pretty productive. Dawson Mercer, 209 games played, 57 goals, 64 assists for 121 points. Now, Raymond and Mercer only played 3 seasons. Alexis Lafrenière, this is his 4th. And I know he was drafted first overall, but considering he's 4th in this draft class when it comes to points, I don't think that's terrible by any stretch of the imagination. 262 games played, 58 goals, 59 assists for 117 points. Now, I still think Lafrenière, with his size and his skill, has more to give offensively. It wouldn't shock me that he could be a consistent, maybe around, a 60, 70 point guy if everything pans out how it should. Is it a bit unfair to constantly compare him to Stützle? They're in the same draft class. I get the comparison, but I think the problem here with Alexis Lafrenière, at least in his perception, in my personal opinion, with some fans, is that he's just looked at as a bust. I think if he becomes a successful NHLer, it's fine. If he becomes a top 6 guy that can contribute and be an important offensive piece, that's the most important thing. Will he ever be a superstar? Maybe, maybe not. But again, I have to reiterate this. He's only 22 years old. He's a 22-year-old kid, 6'1", 195. I think the Rangers have given him more of an opportunity this season to play in a top-line role. You got to be patient with your draft picks. I know it's very easy to get frustrated. I know people... I know some people, not all, but some people just say, oh, he's a bust. He's nothing. Let's just kind of move on from him altogether. He's never going to be anything at the NHL level. He's just... Which... I saw that in a comment, and I said, I don't think that's the case, because I think he has shown that he's a successful NHLer. Will he ever fit the bill of a number 1 overall pick? Probably not, to be fair in that regard. But he's still a competent NHLer that can add, good depth to your roster. And like, in looking at a guy like Lafreniere, some players develop at different paces. Some players develop, some players need a few years. And then they'll figure out the NHL game because everything's moving so fast. There's a lot going on. Some players have better instinctual... Some players are just better with their instincts in other ways. That they don't really need to think as much. I think a guy like Lafreniere, when I was watching him in the first 2 seasons, I think he was a little bit too tentative. A little bit too apprehensive. I think he's starting to build confidence. And, he's in a top 6 role. He's an RFA at the end of 2025. I think you're paying him $3.25 million. That's not a bad price for the production he's giving you. Is he the best player on the Rangers? No, not anywhere close. But I don't think it would be crazy to say by the end of his contract in 2025, I think he could become a 60-point guy. I do. I think that is possible, especially with the team around him. I think him continually building is very, very important. He's a big guy, 6'1". Not massive, but he's a big guy, 6'1". Seems like a pretty damn strong skater. Just got to be patient, give him time. And if I'm a Ranger fan, I'm excited. I'm happy with what I've seen from him currently in his development. He has become far better. Am I saying he's a superstar? Am I saying he's the next Tim Stützle? I'm not going to say that. Right? Stützle had a very good year last year. I think he is also a very bright young player. But if you stop comparing Lafreniere to his class, even just being top 4 in that class, I think... If you could redraft, yeah, you go with Tim. But I think Lafreniere is a solid NHLer that should contribute to a top 6 for a very long time. It's difficult to project where some of these players go. And I would say this, and I would like to know your opinion on this. If Lafreniere, I know he came out of juniors, but if Lafreniere could have played down in the AHL and developed away from the spotlight, I think that could have helped him, and he could have probably hit the ground running at the NHL level. I think some of these guys just need time. And I think because he was drafted 1st overall, they kind of pushed him up there. They kind of accelerated him, which I'm fine with. Get him some NHL games. But sometimes I think with certain players, they just need time away from the spotlight in actual professional level games to kind of build. But, that's just my personal opinion. Maybe I'm wrong in that. But I'd like to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you think Alexis Lafrenière, what do you think of him this season? Are you happy with his development? Are you happy with the evolution of his game? Do you think he is going to be a solid top 6 option for years to come? Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm Paul from the Locker Room. I'll see you in the next one.